we're going to be covering the material for quiz 8. This will be in a 3-part video. So this is part 1. So quiz 8, we will start working on percents. Percents, the word means parts per 100. And we're going to use a percent sign to indicate that parts per 100. This is what the percent sign looks like. Please do not draw a percent sign that looks like this. This is backwards. If you draw a percent sign that looks like this, it is wrong, and I'm going to mark it wrong. So make sure that your percent sign looks like this with your 2 circles, starting on the upper left-hand side and going down to the lower right-hand side with the slash. Now, the percent sign can be exchanged for times 1 over 100 or times 0.01. Now, if you remember from our lectures on fractions and decimals, the word name for this fraction is 1/100th. And I hope you remember also that the word name for this decimal is also 1/100th, because the 1 is in the hundredths place. So thinking back to the word percent, it means parts per 100. These two should make sense that they are equivalent to the percent sign. Okay, so this is sort of background material that you're going to need in order to work with the percents on this quiz. All right, so here is the first topic. And in the first topic, we're going to be learning how to change percents to fractions. All right, it's a 2-step process. Step 1, you're going to remove the percent sign. Step 2, you're going to multiply the remaining number by 1 over 100. So I drew over here times 1 over 100. So again, step 1, remove the percent sign. Step 2, multiply by 1 over 100. Okay, so moving over to this side, we have a few examples that we're going to do. So on your quiz, I'm going to say change these percents to fractions. My directions are also going to include be sure to reduce to lowest terms. All right, so here's our first percent. Notice it has the percent sign, it has a number. So to change this, as well as any of those things, to a fraction, first thing, what does step 1 say? Step 1 says remove the percent sign. So instead of having a 51 and a percent sign, we're just going to have 51. That's step 1. Step 2 says multiply by 1 over 100. So we're going to put our times and 1 over 100. All right, so here we have a whole number and we're multiplying it by a fraction. If you recall when we worked with fractions, what we'll do with the whole number is put a 1 underneath it. And then we would look at both of these to see if we can reduce anything. Now, if you remember, 51 is not a prime number. It can be broken down into 3 times 17. 1 is prime. Down here, the 1 is prime. And 100, we can break that down, for example, into 10 times 10, and each of those into 2 times 5. All right, so 100 ultimately will break down into 2 times 5 times 2 times 5. All right, so if we look at this problem, aside from the 1, there unfortunately isn't anything else that we can cross off. So what we're left with for an answer, 3 times 17 is 51. And 2 times 5 times 2 times 5 is 100. This is fully reduced. How do we know that it's fully reduced? Because we crossed off everything that we could cross off over here. Okay, so 51% is the same thing as 51 over 100. right, so that is our first example. Our second example, we're going to be converting 13% again to a fraction. So step 1, remove the percent sign. Now we just have 13. Step 2, multiply by 1/100. Okay. Again, here we have a whole number. We're multiplying it by a fraction. Anytime you have a whole number and you're multiplying by a fraction, this goes back to quiz 4. We would put a 1 underneath the whole number. We're going to check to see if things can be reduced. But if you recall, 13 is a prime number. So I don't think we're going to be able to reduce 13 unless it goes evenly into 100. And we can certainly cross off the ones, that's fine. But since 13 is prime and it doesn't divide into 100, our answer is going to be 13 over 100. And that is fully reduced. That is our answer. Moving on to the next one, 25%. All right, so again, a 2-step process. All right, step 1, remove the percent sign. Step 2, multiply by 1/100. Just like the previous 2 examples, we're going to put a 1 underneath. We can cross off the ones if we want to. And now we're going to break the 25 down and the 100 down. So 25 is 5 times 5. And 100, if you recall from over here, this is going to be handy to know. 100 is 2 times 5 times 2 times 5. And this comes from the 100 here. All right, so this example, finally, we have something that we can cross off. So we can cross off the 5s. I hope you all remember that whenever you cross off everything in the numerator, you're going to have a 1. You have to have a placeholder. And in the denominator, 2 times 2 is 4. So our answer is 1/4. That is fully reduced. Last but not least, here, this one's unusual because here we have a mixed number. We have 3.5, but the directions and the steps are still the same. Remove the percent sign and multiply by 1/100. If you recall from quiz 4, when we have a mixed number and we're multiplying it by 1/100, first you're going to make this improper. So 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7, over our denominator of 2. We're going to multiply that by 1/100. Okay, so again, we're going to look at our fractions. We're going to see if we can reduce anything. 7 is a prime number, 1 is a prime number, 2 is a prime number. None of those can be broken down. 100 we learned is 2 times 5 times 2 times 5. There won't be any 2's and 5's in the numerator to cross off. So our answer is going to be 1 times 7, which is 7, and 2 times 100, which is 200. So 3.5 is the same thing as 7 over 200. 3.5%, I should say, is the same thing as 7 over 200. All right, we're going to do a few more examples at the end, but these are enough to get you started. All right, next one will be step 2, or section 2. Okay, bye.